Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me for PlatformCon 2026 for this talk about KRO, or Kubernetes Resource Orchestrator. My name is Abdel. I'm a developer advocate at Google. I'm a platform engineering and CNCF ambassador. I co-host a podcast called Kubernetes Podcast from Google, and my main work is on Kubernetes service mesh and security. That QR code you see on the screen will take you to my website and also to my social links. So what is KRO? Before we get going, I want to do a little bit of a primer on how Kubernetes work. If you've probably seen this before or you know how Kubernetes work, this might sound boring, but it's important to actually do this reminder. Kubernetes is a system that allows you to run containers at scale. It's split into two main components, your control plane and your data plane. Your control plane is the core of the system, the brain of the system. That's where all the main components sit. That's what you talk to, that's what you interact with. The data plane or worker nodes is where actually workloads would run. Workloads run in what we call a pod, and you can think of a pod as just a container. In the control plane of Kubernetes, we have some main components like API server, controller manager, scheduler, etcd for databases. I'm not going to go too much into the details. The most important thing to keep in mind from this is that the API server is what you talk to, and then etcd is where Kubernetes stores things. Kubernetes follows a philosophy which can be designed or described in three different words. Declarative, which means you express intent to the cluster, not action. So you say, I want this to be happen or to happen, and then the cluster will make it happen. It's extensible, which means you can build on top of the API and build your own custom things. And it's universal. It gives you a camel language, YAML, to describe resources across any cloud provider, any infrastructure, and any platform. In Kubernetes, the way we express resources is following this thing called the Kubernetes resource model. The Kubernetes resource model allows us to express intent in the form of a YAML file, which describes an object or a resource. That objects have fields, labels, specs, things like that. Then we send that to the API server via a standard HTTP CRUD method, get, put, delete, or update. And then that will basically commit the resource into the database. And then inside Kubernetes, there will be a controller, which is responsible for making that object happen, for making the intent happen. One of my favorite ways actually of describing Kubernetes is to say it's a promising machine. You give Kubernetes something to do, and it promises you that that thing will happen eventually at some point. So this is how we express intent or desired states. So it's an example of how we deploy a pod, which have some metadata, some labels, and some specs. Then which means actually that what we could do with Kubernetes is that we can create new objects. So we can create new resources that doesn't exist inside Kubernetes. Kubernetes itself comes with its own native resources, pods, services, deployments, stateful sets, etc., etc. But we can create our own. And the way we do that is via what we call a CRD, a custom resource definition. You define a new object using a CRD. You commit that object to the cluster so that the cluster knows that the objects exist, and then you can create instances of the object. It's in a way the same concept of interfaces and instances in the object-oriented programming sense. So here is an example where we are doing a custom resource definition of an object that we call counters. That object, we're going to skip through the details, has basically one property called value, and it's of type integer. This defines the interface. Once we send this to Kubernetes, Kubernetes will register this, and it will become aware of an object called counter. So later, we can basically create as many counters as we want. Once we create this object and we send it to the cluster goes like, oh, I know a counter, I'm just going to register this. In both cases, the custom resource definition is committed to Kubernetes database, and then the counters are also committed to the database. Now, these two objects are kind of useless without the next component, which is what we call the controller. The controller is the actual object that will basically, it's a piece of code that will basically action based on an instance or action based on a CRD. So when a CRD is committed, if there is no controller to do something with it, that CRD is just consuming space in the database, which is useless. So what we can do with controllers is we can actually make the cluster trigger a logic, trigger piece of code that will do something. And so that essentially is the core of how Kubernetes work, the desired state versus the observed state. So you commit an object to the cluster, that's the desired state, and then a controller will trigger when that object is committed and will provision a resource associated with that particular object. The CRD plus operators is actually what makes Kubernetes extensible. That's what we mean by extensibility. You can build operators in multiple ways, Kudo, KubeBuilder, or any other programming language. There is even Java frameworks for actually building controllers in Quarkus. Here is a very simple example of how we can use this concept of CRDs plus controllers. So let's say, for example, that you have cloud resources that you want to manage using Kubernetes. You could, of course, use Terraform. Nothing will prevent you from doing that, or Bash scripts. But with Kubernetes, as a platform admin, I create a bunch of custom resource definition in my cluster that describe a cloud resource, a database, a VM, a pub/sub, a topic, things like that. Then a controller, which is typically designed and written by the cloud provider, would be installed in the cluster. And then me as a developer will basically create an instance of an object that exists in some cloud provider. And then that controller will make sure that that object will be provisioned. What you see on the right side are the examples of the controllers of the major cloud providers: KCC for Google, ACK for AWS, and ASO for Azure. There is also another controller called Crossplane, which is a vendor neutral kind of cloud agnostic one, which is open source. So these are some examples of existing controllers in this space. So another example of what we can do with this is a Google specific example where we can, for example, create a Cloud SQL interface. So that's the CRD. We create a GCS bucket interface. That's also a CRD. And then as a developer, I will instantiate this Cloud SQL interface and then create a Cloud SQL database. And then KCC, which is the controller, will actually go and provision that Cloud SQL for me. Same thing for the bucket. Now, the thing with CRDs and operators is that they are actually quite difficult to write and maintain. They're quite hard, actually. And this is something that we know for a while. But we can make it easier. And that's where KRO comes into the picture. KRO allows you to basically make it easier to manage CRDs or to manage the custom resource definition part. Let me show you how it works. So let's take an example where we want to actually deploy an application into Kubernetes. The minimum thing you will have to do is create a deployment, which creates the pods, create a service that points to that deployment, and then create an ingress to expose that deployment behind the load balancer. And already just deploying this application, we are at 55 lines of code of YAML. Now imagine you have to do 10, 100 of those. It means basically that this file has to be created in 10 or 100 times. Of course, you can use something like Customize to basically create templates, or Helm to create templates. So you only create like the values file, which then allows you to instantiate or to substitute certain values. And then things can get even more complicated if you have config maps, secrets, volumes, etc., etc. So how can we make this simpler with KRO? With KRO, we have already actually installed KRO in this cluster. So if I do kubectl get pods KRO in the KRO system, get pods in the KRO system namespace, I already have my KRO controller installed. KRO introduces a concept called resource graph definition, or RGD. A resource graph definition is the KRO way of defining a CRD. So in a resource graph definition, we have basically two sections, a spec section and a resources section. In the spec section, that's what we are deploying. What is the CRD that will be created? That's where we express the CRD that will be created. In this case, we say we want to create a CRD called application. This CRD has three fields: a name, an image, and an ingress: string, and boolean. And then we can also get status. I'm going to talk about this in a bit. Then in the resources section, we basically tell KRO when an object of type application is created, this is what you generate. That's your template. So this is where we create our deployment. We can actually use variables coming from the fields part of the spec of the RGD. And we create a service, and then we create an ingress. And the same way we can do this, we could also actually bring up values from the resources section. So in this particular case, I am actually bringing up the deployment conditions and making it reflect into my RGD object. So if I do a kubectl describe on my application, I'll be able to see the status of my deployment and then how many replicas have been created. One of the things to keep in mind about RGD is that it actually creates a graph, which means that it has awareness of resources dependency on each other. So if a resource depends on the value of another resource to be created, then KRO will organize or order the resource creation in the order they should be. So that's the graph part. Then once I create this, I basically commit it to the cluster. Now, if I do a kubectl get application, or I get CRD, for example, and then I grep on application, I should be able that I have actually a CRD called application that have been created. So that's essentially this thing, the resource graph definition. After that, I can basically instantiate this particular application as many times as I want. And that's the instance part. I have already created this. So if I do kubectl get application, I should be able to see that I have an app called my app, and it has a name, and these are the fields. You remember my application, my RGD says that my application have 3 fields: name, image, and ingress. Now, if I follow the logic of the resources part, it means that I should have a deployment, a service, and an object. So if I do a kubectl get pods, I should have 3 replicas of my deployment. Where does the 3 replicas came from? Well, in my RGD, I define that my deployment should create 3 replicas. Then if I do kubectl get services, I should have my service called my app service, which is essentially here. It's the name of the object, my app dash service. Same thing for ingress, which should be this one, my app ingress. So now what I can do is I only define the RGD once, and then I can create as many instances as I want in basically 9 lines of code instead of 50 or 60 or whatever that number is. So KRO allows us or enables us to do a lot of interesting things. For example, we can use KRO to create higher level abstractions, which includes both Kubernetes native objects and then cloud native objects. So this is an example where I have a web app RGD, and this web app RGD will have a deployment and service, which are Kubernetes native objects, but it will have a Prometheus, a service account, cloud, a bucket, a Cloud SQL instance, etc., etc. And so as far as KRO is concerned, the controller, it's up to you. So you have to make sure that the controller that will create the resources is already available in the cluster. KRO will only register the CRD, and then it will create an instance of the CRD. The controller that will act on the CRD has to either be a controller that is available inside Kubernetes natively or something that you deploy, in this case, for example, KCC. Another example, this is actually one of my favorite examples. One thing we could do actually with KRO is that we could hide the abstraction or hide the complexity of an object. So this is an example where we're using GKE, which is Google product. GKE is very complex. It has a very long API. So what we could do is we could hide all the default values behind the object. So we only expose to the user, the developer, the fields that we want them to be able to change. This could also apply to AWS or to Azure, to any cloud provider, where you don't necessarily want, for example, the developer to be able to touch the security parameters or the policy parameters or the IAM parameters. So putting together KRO and any cloud provider specific resource can actually allow you to basically use Kubernetes as a driving mechanism for both deploying your application and your cloud dependencies. KRO is in an experimental phase. You can find more resources on kro.run or on the GitHub repo. It's pretty actually powerful tool. It allows you to create a lot of abstraction layers, so you can make managing cloud resources A, universal through Kubernetes, and B, easier and abstracted for your end users. I hope this was useful. You can find me on social. Thank you so much.